Makkah and Arabia, about the year 570. Makkah is important for two reasons. 1. The Kaaba is there, an ancient temple built to worship God. And 2. Muhammad, peace be upon him, was born in Makkah. Now, problem. I can't show you Muhammad because it wouldn't be right. I'll tell you why in a bit. But in the meantime, here's his name in Arabic. Nice. Back in the day, Makkah was a lawless place. The only way to be safe was to have backup. Lots of rich big brothers who'd beat up anyone who got in your way. So the place was ruled by the most powerful families who could do pretty much what they wanted. And religion didn't help. By this time, the Kaaba had been filled to overflowing with 360 idols that did nothing to help anyone. So it was a tough place to grow up. If, like Muhammad, you were a poor orphan and believed in just one God you couldn't see, like the Jews and the Christians, he called him Allah, the God, in Arabic there. Muhammad's dad died before he was even born, and his mum died when he was just 6. So he was brought up by his grandfather, Abdul Muttalib, and then, when he died too, by his uncle, Abu Talib, who had the respect of the city's ruling families, so Muhammad was safe for the time being. Muhammad started out as a shepherd and then became a businessman, travelling about buying and selling stuff for rich clients. When he did some work for a rich widow called Khadija, she was so impressed by his honesty and skill that they ended up getting married. And for a while, it looked like Muhammad was going places. Well, he was, but not how you think. Every year in the month of Ramadan, different calendar, different names for the months, there was a big party around the Kaaba when people made sacrifices to the idols.
The month of what? Ramadan? I thought Ramadan was a Muslim holiday.
Wait, so what's up with all these gods? They this is like what they idolize as the gods. So like how some religions have a god of different things. That's what they were like back then.
I think that's what it was, that they were saying, yeah, there were all these different idols. Like we've talked about the pagans worshiping the sun and the moon and various things as gods. But back up 10 seconds, and then she said something about the month of Ramadan.
Every year in the month of Ramadan, different calendar, different names for the months, there was a big party around the Kaaba when people made sacrifices to the idols. Muhammad hated it, so he'd get...
Okay,
damn,
so Ramadan,
they used to make sacrifices.
Ramadan was just something that was happening anyway before Islam.
But they were good. It looks like they were doing godless activities around Mecca.
Yeah, okay.
Damn.
Out of town and sleep in a cave he'd found on top of a nearby mountain. One night, Muhammad's praying to Allah when wham! There's the angel Jibreel, you might say Gabriel, standing right in front of him. Read, says the angel, but Muhammad couldn't read. No schools, you see. Jibreel keeps on at him. 3 times he says, read. Then he grabs hold of Muhammad and wham! Again, it's like Muhammad's learnt the words off by heart. So he recites the message out loud. Read in the name of your Lord, who created man from a drop of blood. Read, for your Lord is most generous. He who taught by the...
And you can go to that mountain, right? Like, I think that's a legit historical landmark that people can go to. Isn't that what the 3 Muslims said? And he said one of them went there and felt like something really special.
He did say he went to one of the special, places where Muhammad was. I don't know if it was this one.
Huh.
I don't remember.
Have you ever had something with like a dream? So how he couldn't understand language and then he suddenly understood it. Did you ever have that in a dream or something where something like didn't make any sense to you or you couldn't, and then you either had a dream or something like that and then it started making sense?
Music.
Music?
I have written songs in my dreams that I know I have never heard,
and then you woke up and wrote it down.
I wake up and I don't know how to write it down, and they are lost. It's happened I think it's happened 3 times, 2 that I can remember for sure. And it told me the thing is, in my head, I feel like if I studied music and I really dug into it, that I could actually write music, and I can't. I know I can't read music, I can't write music, I can't play any instruments. I've never studied them, but in my dream, I have written new songs that I know did not exist.
That's crazy.
And it drives me crazy. And I wonder if there's some sort of message there that I ought to be doing that.
It was just a straight banger. Could have taken you out of the hood. You'll never know. I had that with Italian, I said, where I couldn't understand Italian, and then I had a dream, and it just like made sense afterwards.
Wow.
It was weird. Like I couldn't understand conjugations for the life of me, like first, second, third person. And then I was trying to learn it, or sort of. I didn't really care about school. And then I had a dream, and then I just got like so much better at languages, and like I was kind of with all my on the same wavelength as my friends, where we were all just dumbasses in the class, and then I was like the smartest.
You were good at languages, yeah.
The matter of days, I was really good at it. Weird stuff, how that happens.
And taught man what he did not know.
Is there a reason for that?
It was a message from Allah. God was speaking to him just like he'd spoken to the prophets in the Jewish and Christian holy books, which meant he was a prophet too. The messages continued for the rest of Muhammad's life. Allah gave him the words to say and the prophet recited them. The words were written down by his friends, and years later they were collected together and became the Muslim holy book, the Quran, which means recitation, because Muhammad recited it, you see? Anyway, that was much later, so back to the Night of Power. Muhammad tells his family, then his friends, and eventually everyone about Allah, that he's the one and only God, that he wants everyone to be treated fairly, and long story short, it didn't go down well with the ruling families of Mecca, who liked things just the way they were, thank you very much. You see, Islam means obedience to Allah, and Muslim means someone who obeys Allah, and the ruling families didn't want anyone obeying anyone else but them. So the people who believed in Muhammad's message, the Muslims, were given a hard time. Some were even tortured and killed. A few of them managed to escape to Abyssinia, Ethiopia. But most were stuck in Mecca. Muhammad also had to cope with the death of his wife, and then just a few weeks later, his uncle too.
Damn, that's...
Feeling very down, he went to the Kaaba to pray to Allah one night. Then, the weirdest thing happened. Jibreel turns up, sits him on a winged horse called Al-Buraq and flies him all the way from Mecca to Jerusalem. He prays with all the prophets who have ever lived. Then, he's taken up to the heavens to chat with some of the...
Did they just say he went on a winged horse, flew to Jerusalem, and then prayed with all the prophets? So
so
does that mean that he was with Jesus and them?
Jesus and Moses and Elijah.
So it's like... How much do we take as like truth? Like that legit happened? Or what if it was like a psychedelic experience or something? Because you know what I mean?
No, they're good questions, and I'm sure that there are some scholars who could answer them. But they did talk about how Muhammad was clear on staying away from psychedelic, not necessarily psychedelics, but
I know,
substances.
Because it's like you pick up the phone and you're not putting it down.
Which
that's
just your
interesting
connection
because that
is
means
just with God.
that means you're acknowledging that you're like seeing those forces.
Look, if you believe that Moses parted the Red Sea, that Jesus could raise the dead, heal the blind, heal lepers, why not believe that Muhammad could fly and that a winged horse took him somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, that just sounds wild. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that in a bad way.
Maybe it was a
That's
pterodactyl.
I don't know. Wait, let's keep going though.
prophets, and then into paradise itself.
So, but like I'm saying, like with all other prophets, doesn't that mean that he was with Jesus then? Does that mean Jesus was back? But was Jesus really back, or was it like some Star Wars shit where like you're with like the ghost of Yoda and everyone else?
Definitely some Star Wars shit, right? Because I think if it was Jesus' actual second coming, then the world would have known. And I also think that there have been other highly documented and verified sightings of saints and the Mother Mary in Fatima, and there have been angels like where multiple people saw them and multiple people witnessed miracles in more modern day history. So it's not that far-fetched to think that he sat with the prophets, prior prophets.
But Allah tells Muhammad to pray 5 times a day and to stay strong. He's returned to Jerusalem and then flies back to the Kaaba in Makkah. We call it the night journey, and Muslims still argue whether it was a real experience or a vision, but whatever. It gave Muhammad a much needed...
There you go. Even the Muslims are arguing about that.
Wow, that's wild.
I'd love to hear educated arguments on that.
That's like the one thing I really question, and that's the same thing they do. That's so fascinating.
Boost, and just as well.
Like imagine it was
it's
just
not
like
that crazy to question whether or not a fucking Pegasus came along and flew someone.
Yeah, but how do you know what to believe with religion a lot of the time? You know
That's
what I mean?
I'm saying. It's not that crazy that it was.
Yeah, all right.
Others questioned it.
Let's just keep going.
Because there were more tough times ahead. So, there was this other city called Yathrib. The people there heard about Muhammad and his message and invited him and his followers to join them. A few at a time, the Muslims left Mecca and made a dangerous journey across the desert to Yathrib. It's known as a hijra, which means migration.
I'm listening. Oh my God.
Made a dangerous journey across the desert to Yathrib. It's known as a hijra, which means migration. Like birds do. Muhammad and a few of his friends stayed in Mecca until everyone had got away and then made plans for their own escape. But the ruling families wanted to kill Muhammad while they still could, so 7 sons, one from each family, was sent in the middle of the night to stab the Prophet while he slept. But he was way ahead of them, and when they burst into the house, Muhammad was gone. Trackers were sent out to hunt him down. Muhammad and his best friend Abu Bakr took a roundabout route to try and shake off the pursuit, but the trackers were too good and slowly gained on them.
You know, that's so crazy to think about back then, that like the way you had to track people. Like I feel like back then you could just go to a town, rob it, go to the next town, and like how is anyone gonna find you? How do you even explain what the person looked like who did this thing?
Yeah.
How are they gonna prove that? Like that's wild that they're going and chasing after him.
That was really scary. That's why though a lot of innocent people were accused and convicted and hung or whatever for crimes they didn't commit. Because
that's something.
Because the leaders needed to solve the crime in order to make everybody feel better, and so they'd be like, "He did it. He looks, yeah. Oh, look, yeah, 6 foot white guy. Yep, you did it," and you'd be hanging in the town square. Unfortunately,
Which,
you know, really, it's really sad.
So Muhammad and Abu Bakr hid in a cave and prayed that no one found them. The trackers found the cave all right, but they didn't bother going in to search. There was no way Muhammad could be inside, they thought. There was a spider's web over the mouth of the cave and a nesting bird at the entrance. He must have given them the slip. So off they went, leaving Muhammad and Abu Bakr protected by a spider and a bird.
what? So did they say like he went in the cave and there must have been a water supply inside or something, and then the spider built it and the bird? Like they say that in the Quran. Do you think that was intentional to think that he wouldn't go in there?
I would think so. Otherwise, how would we know?
That's
like,
incredible.
They say that everything they know about it is in the one book, and that was one thing we learned from the Muslims, the 3 Muslims, is that they said that everything's in one book. Where in Christianity, you know, we have a lot of different writings.
It's fascinating.
Muhammad made it safely to Yathrib, which was renamed Medina al-Nabi, the city of the Prophet, but most people just call it Medina. But Muhammad's worries weren't over yet. There were 3 big battles between the Muslims and the Meccans. First, the Battle of Badr, when Muhammad and just 313 men faced 1,000 Meccan soldiers. Miraculously, the Muslims won.
Wait,
Then,
what were those numbers?
330 to
faced
over 1,000.
1,000 Meccan soldiers. Miraculously, the Muslims won. Then there was the Battle of Uhud, which didn't go so well. Some of Muhammad's men disobeyed his orders and ran off during the battle to raid the Meccans' camp, and so the Muslims were outmaneuvered. Then there was the Battle of the Trench. Medina was protected on 3 sides by mountains, so when the Meccan forces advanced in the city, the Muslims just dug a deep trench. The Meccans made camp, but the weather was terrible. Pouring rain put out their fires and howling winds blew down their tents. Eventually they gave up and went back to Mecca. It was all a bit embarrassing. They were losing the respect of the local tribes who were flocking to join the Muslims. So a peace treaty was signed at Hudaybiyah, but it wasn't long before the Meccans broke it. Muhammad decided that enough was enough. By now he had over 10,000 men, so he led them across the desert to Mecca. The ruling families realized they'd made a huge mistake, but it was too late. All they could do was surrender and hope that the Muslim army killed them quickly. But Muhammad said there should be no more fighting. He rode into Mecca and went straight to the Kaaba. He circled it 7 times anti-clockwise and smashed all the idols, rededicating the Kaaba to Allah. And that's why I'm not going to show you Muhammad. The Muslims wanted to make it totally clear that they only worship the one unseen God. So they didn't have any pictures of Muhammad in case anyone thought he was an idol, and they didn't have any pictures of Allah because he's like nothing on earth. So it would be impossible to draw him anyway.
Wow.
So there you go. How is
that makes a lot more sense to me, to be honest. Like, because when I think of God and stuff, I don't think of like a person or something like that. I think of like a force that's just everywhere that, you know, you can't see, and you need to tap into different things to really be in touch with it.
But God sent Jesus as an extension of himself so that we could see God in another human being, and he sent him as a messenger to make him more relatable, and that's what that is about. So I don't know that and people have died in modern, like in recent years, because they drew a picture of Muhammad, and extremist Muslims killed them because of that. And you know,
really,
I know it's not fair to, you know, this is where like the media comes in and paints a picture of Muslims and Islam, but I would like to talk to a nonviolent Muslim and see what their thoughts are on that. I'd like to hear that. I'd like to hear the 3 Muslims take on that and how serious it is, and why. I get it that they take everything seriously, but is it worth killing somebody over because they created a cartoon image of Muhammad? I mean, where's the love in that? And I don't think it takes away from God to show his message messenger. So I just think
I get what they're saying as it makes him like an idol, because he's just the prophet, he's just the messenger, he's not the one that you're worshiping. That like I kind of do get that.
I don't. I get that. I get that Muhammad had problems with idols because he was steeped in this ridiculous culture where everyone was a complete asshole.
Well, it's not about Muhammad's thing.
But it is, because he had a problem. It said, he couldn't stand all those false idols. He couldn't stand the sacrifices and the ceremonies around it. So he himself probably chose, he didn't want his image to ever overshadow God the way those other idols did. So I get that. Like, that's pretty cool of him. At the same time, I don't understand why, you have to be so hell bent on it that it's worth killing people over.
Yeah.
It was some good.
Learned some stuff.
It was some good beats in the story that I felt like we got something out of that. Yeah. But I have to say, and this is gonna probably be controversial, but as I learn more about Islam, on the one hand, the more I respect it, and the more I respect Muslims, and I really appreciate them for their everything about it, the culture, the religion, their discipline. But it actually is cementing and moving me even closer and more serious into Christianity. So
interesting,
because it's making me study Christianity more too.
Is there an original copy of the Quran somewhere?
Let's see. It is part of the Mingana collection of 3,000 Middle Eastern manuscripts cared for by the Cadbury Research Library at the University of Birmingham, UK.
That's the original Quran.
It's one of the earliest. It says, go up. One of the earliest surviving fragments of the Quran, and one of only a handful of early manuscripts of the Quran in the world to have been radiocarbon dated. So it's an early fragment. Of course, it's not going to exist in its totality.
That's crazy, though. All right. Make sure to follow my Instagram. I'm doing a $100 giveaway to someone who follows and then likes and comments on my recent post. I'll pop it up here. And yeah, hope you win.
Drop a sub and a like if you're into it.
All right. Yeah.
And the little bell if you want. Little bell if you want to get notifications on when new videos coming out.
For sure.
Thanks, guys.
All right, guys. See you soon.
Thanks for hanging.
Guess I'm hurt and I don't know what to say. Guess it's about damn time now we turn